Well, I always tried to concentrate on living a healthy life and keeping it free from stress. Stress is a killer.
Before becoming the highest-paid actor in Europe by 1960, Stephen Reeves built an impressive career as a bodybuilder, winning Mr. America in 1947, Mr. World in 1948, and the coveted Mr. Universe in 1950. However, amidst all his success lay a deep-seated animosity toward fellow actor Raymond Burr. After decades of silence and carefully crafted interviews, we finally know what happened. Don't scroll. And whatever you do, don't stop watching. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why he couldn't stand Raymond Burr, and why for so many years, that truth had to stay hidden. Early life and path to bodybuilding. Steve Reeves' story really reads like one of those old-school Hollywood epics, full of early tragedy, grit, heart, and a whole lot of charm. It all began on January 21, 1926, in the small, freezing cold town of Glasgow, Montana, tucked just a few miles away from the Canadian border. You know, the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and winters feel like they last forever? That's where little Steve opened his eyes for the first time. He was born into a family that carried a blend of Welsh, Irish, German, and English blood. And with that mix came a strong work ethic and a deep sense of determination, but also heartbreak. His father, Lester Dell Reeves, tragically passed away in a farming accident when Steve was just 6 months old. That loss would quietly shape Steve's entire life. It wasn't something he talked about much, but it hung over him like a shadow, driving him to be stronger, tougher, and more self-reliant from a very young age. When Steve was about 10, his mom, Goldie, decided to pack up and move them out west to Oakland, California. It was a massive change, but one that opened doors to a whole new world. California wasn't just a change of scenery. It was the spark that lit the fire. And Goldie, bless her heart, was so hands-on. When she noticed that little Steve was starting to slouch, probably from carrying the weight of everything he'd been through, she made him wear shoulder braces. "They cut into me every time I stooped, so I just had to straighten up," Steve once said. Doesn't that just paint a picture? It's kind of funny, but also deeply symbolic, right? Like life literally forced him to stand tall. Why would someone truly despise a Hollywood legend like Raymond Burr? The truth behind this hatred is wilder than you'd expect. Once you hear the reason, you'll never look at Raymond Burr the same way again. So don't even think about skipping. What we found at the very end might just blow your mind. Then came one of those small, seemingly random moments that ends up changing everything. During a summer visit to one of his mother's friends' ranches, young Steve saw a guy named Vernon Hall splitting logs with this enormous axe. Vernon had muscles for days, and when he swung that thing, shirt off, sun glinting on his biceps, it was like watching a real-life superhero. That was it. That was the moment Steve's interest in bodybuilding really took root. And honestly, who wouldn't be inspired? Vernon was like a living statue. From there, Steve started finding ways to build his own strength, like choosing to pedal his bicycle up the steep Oakland hills on his paper route instead of walking it like the other boys. That tells you everything you need to know about his mindset, doesn't it? But life had another detour planned. World War II broke out, and just as Steve was really starting to find his footing, he put it all on hold to serve his country. Right after graduating high school, he joined the Army. September 12, 1944, he reported for duty at the Presidio of Monterey in California. After basic training at Camp Roberts, he was shipped off to the Philippines. By February 1945, he was in Mindanao, and later Luzon, right in the thick of it. He even fought in the brutal battle for Balete Pass, and it was there that he fell seriously ill, contracting malaria mixed with jungle fever. Yikes! He ended up hospitalized in Manila for weeks. Just think about that. He went from dreaming of muscles and movies to surviving the jungle with a high fever and a gun in his hands. But even then, he pushed through. After recovering, he was stationed in Otaru, a little town in northern Japan, as part of the occupation forces until finally being discharged in September 1946. After 26 months of service, he came back home, not just older, but forged like steel. And guess what? That fire for bodybuilding hadn't died out. If anything, it was burning brighter than ever. Back in Oakland, Steve reunited with Ed Yarrick, a well-known bodybuilding coach who wasn't just a mentor. He became something like a second father. When Steve first stepped into Yarrick's gym, he was tall, 6 feet, but skinny, only about 163 pounds. But oh boy, did that change fast. After just 4 months of intense, full-body workouts, he gained 30 pounds of pure muscle. That's not just genetics, that's dedication. His mom, Goldie, was still right there supporting him, making sure he ate right. Lots of veggies, lean meats, fruit, the basics, but done right. Nothing fancy, just good old-fashioned nutrition. And within another year, Steve had packed on even more muscle, topping the scale at 203 pounds. Seriously, can you imagine watching yourself grow like that, week after week? It must have felt amazing. By 1946, he was ready to show the world what he'd been working on. He took a train up to Oregon to compete in his very first contest, the Mr. Pacific Coast. And, of course, he won, easily. That was just the beginning. Over the next few years, he went on a winning streak that was nothing short of legendary. Mr. Pacific Coast again in 1947, Mr. America that same year, then Mr. World in 1948. And the cherry on top, Mr. Universe in 1950. Can we take a second to appreciate that? He won every major title available before Mr. Olympia even existed. That's like winning every single race before they even invent the Olympics. And the best part? He did it all naturally, with a body that was sculpted by sheer hard work, not shortcuts. His physique was the stuff of legends. Perfect symmetry, broad shoulders, tiny waist, all muscle, no nonsense. Even though his competitive bodybuilding career was relatively short, just 4 years, Steve Reeves made such an impact that people are still talking about him today. He wasn't just a guy with muscles. He was the guy with muscles. And this whole journey, from a fatherless baby in rural Montana to an international bodybuilding sensation, is one of those stories that reveals that strength isn't just physical. It's mental. It's emotional. It's choosing to pedal up the hill when walking would be easier. From Mr. Universe to movie star. In 1950, the world of physique competitions was buzzing. The biggest title of them all at the time? Mr. Universe. And guess who walks in like a Greek god sculpted out of pure marble and takes the crown? Yes, Steve Reeves. And not just like a walk-in-the-park kind of win. No, he went head-to-head with none other than British bodybuilding legend Reg Park. It was a real clash of the titans, muscle for muscle, pose for pose. People couldn't take their eyes off these two giants, but in the end, it was Reeves who pulled ahead. And just like that, at only 25, he became the new king of bodybuilding. But here's the plot twist. Literally, the night after winning, while most folks would be partying for a week straight, Reeves did something no one expected. he announced his retirement. I mean, can you imagine? You're at the absolute top. You've just conquered one of the most prestigious titles in the world, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Who does that? But Steve did. He knew deep down that he'd already proven what he needed to. No chasing clout, no holding on too long, just a graceful mic drop at the height of his powers. And oh, the recognition he got after that win? It was on another level. They didn't just hand him a trophy, they gave him a bronze statue of Eugene Sandow, the man many call the father of modern bodybuilding. That's like getting a Grammy and then also getting a personal award from Beethoven. His symmetry, his muscle definition, people were losing their minds over it. One columnist even wrote in Your Physique magazine that Reeves was the most flawless young man he'd ever seen, going as far as to say he looked like something out of a comic book. But let's be real. Back then, bodybuilding didn't exactly come with a retirement plan or a cushy paycheck. So what does a guy with godlike looks and a stage presence do next? Yep, he sets his sights on Hollywood. And it didn't take long for Tinseltown to notice. Producers were practically tripping over themselves to get this walking sculpture in front of the camera. Can you blame them? Even the great Cecil B. DeMille had his eyes on Reeves for the lead in Samson and Delilah. But get this, DeMille wanted him to lose 15 pounds of muscle. Can you imagine asking Steve Reeves to slim down? That's like asking a lion to purr like a kitten. So Reeves, in true Steve fashion, turned it down. Integrity over opportunity. Gotta love that. Still, he didn't give up on acting. In 1954, he dipped his toes into film with a small role in Ed Wood's Jailbait. It's one of the rare films where you actually get to hear his real voice, because most of his future work would be dubbed. That same year, he charmed his way into the musical Athena, playing the love interest of Jane Powell. Can you imagine that? Mr. Universe, singing and dancing in an MGM musical. The range! He even popped up on television a few times, with appearances on The Ray Bolger Show and The George Burns and Gracie Allen Show. Honestly, it was like watching Hercules do sitcoms. Something oddly delightful about that image, right? And here's a fun little nugget. Before he really took off in film, Reeves even shared the screen with Raymond Burr in an episode of Stars Over Hollywood called Prison Doctor. It's wild to think how many small, seemingly random gigs helped shape his path. But let's talk about the real turning point, the one that made Reeves a global icon. So there's this Italian director, Pietro Francisci, desperately searching for someone to play Hercules in a new sword and sandal epic. He couldn't find the right guy anywhere. Enter Francisci's daughter, who'd seen Reeves in Athena and said, "Hey, what about this guy?" Talk about a lucky break. Next thing you know, Reeves is on a plane to Italy with $10,000 in his pocket and a golden opportunity waiting on the other side. And wow, did he deliver. Hercules, 1958, might not have had a Marvel-sized budget, but it exploded in popularity across Europe. And when American film distributor Joseph E. Levine swooped in, bought the US rights, dubbed it in English, and launched this massive promo campaign, Reeves was suddenly a box office goldmine. The film made $5 million in the US alone. That's a huge deal for the time. People couldn't get enough of this muscle-bound hero tearing chains apart and tossing boulders like beach balls. Of course, that kind of success demanded a sequel. Hercules Unchained came out the very next year, and honestly, it outdid the first one. It was a certified blockbuster. Reeves became the face of a whole genre, sparking a sword and sandal craze that dominated international cinemas. By 1960, he was officially the biggest movie star in 25 countries. He didn't just dislike Raymond Burr, He utterly hated him. Did Burr step over the line? Say something unforgivable? Or was there a dark secret buried deep in old Hollywood drama? The rise and fall of a sword and sandal icon. After the jaw-dropping success of Hercules, not only did the movie blow up, but it created an entire genre all on its own, the sword and sandal epic. Like seriously, who would have thought that one guy swinging a club and wearing a toga could change cinema forever? But that's exactly what Reeves did. When Hercules dropped in Europe, it was like someone had flipped a switch. Theaters were packed, lines stretched around blocks, and folks couldn't get enough of him. It wasn't just a movie, it was an event. And Reeves didn't just stop with Hercules. Oh no, this man became the go-to guy for anything remotely mythological. He played Phidippides in The Giant of Marathon in 1959, yeah, the same guy who inspired the whole marathon race thing. He was in The Last Days of Pompeii, The White Warrior, and even portrayed the legendary Aeneas in The Trojan Horse. Not to mention Duel of the Titans and Thief of Baghdad. If there was a toga in the costume department, Steve Reeves was probably wearing it. And let's not overlook how much he was making at his peak, $250,000 per film. I mean, come on, in the late 50s and early 60s? That was mega money. That when the producers of Dr. No, yes, the very first James Bond movie, offered him $100,000 to play 007, he turned it down. Like, he actually said no to Bond because they were lowballing him. But, as with all things in life, the highs didn't last forever. And this part of the story? It's kinda heartbreaking. During the filming of The Last Days of Pompeii, Steve had this nasty accident. He was in a chariot, and it suddenly slammed into a tree, and boom! He dislocated his shoulder. And it didn't stop there. He made it worse during an underwater escape scene, and from that point on, things just started going downhill. Like, you could see the toll it was taking on him in his later films. In Thief of Baghdad, fans were whispering that his body didn't look the same, his legs and shoulders were smaller, and that crazy arm vascularity he was famous for, gone. Totally gone. It's like his body was slowly waving the white flag, and there was nothing he could do about it. By the late 60s, it was clear Reeves was at a crossroads. The shoulder pain wasn't going away. The stress of the job was piling up, and to top it all off, the sword and sandal craze was fizzling out. People had moved on to spaghetti westerns thanks to Clint Eastwood and that raspy man with no name vibe. Reeves tried to adapt. He even did a western, A Long Ride from Hell, in 1968. But it just wasn't the same. At only 42 years old, he called it quits. And honestly, it was a smart move. Unlike a lot of stars who crash and burn after fame fades, Reeves had been smart with his money. He invested in stocks, bonds, and real estate. No flashy spending, no wild scandals, just smart, quiet moves that set him up for a peaceful life later on. He bought this huge 360-acre ranch near Medford, Oregon, and spent his days breeding horses. Isn't that just the most cinematic ending you can imagine? From battling mythical beasts on the silver screen to riding through his ranch surrounded by horses he raised. It's kind of poetic if you think about it. When someone asked him about acting, he didn't even pretend to be nostalgic about it. He told the Los Angeles Times, "I never enjoyed being an actor. What I enjoyed was the challenge." That says a lot, doesn't it? It wasn't about the fame or the adoration or even the money. It was about pushing himself, doing something hard and coming out on top. The philosophy that defined Steve Reeves. Steve Reeves wasn't just that ridiculously good-looking guy from all those sword and sandal movies, the guy with the jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and a body that looked like it was sculpted by some ancient Greek god's personal artist. No, he was so much more than that. Beyond all the movie star charm and muscle flexing, Steve Reeves was actually a man on a mission, one that went way deeper than fame or vanity. He had this philosophy, this mindset about life and fitness that just hits different, you know? It wasn't about being the biggest or the most shredded in the room. It was about balance. Wholesome, grounded balance between the way your body looks and the way your body feels. Steve's whole approach to fitness was built around natural methods, no weird powders from shady supplement companies, and definitely no needles or vials in the back of a gym locker. He truly believed that if you couldn't build the body you wanted using what you were born with, maybe bodybuilding wasn't your sport. And that's the thing about Steve. He was brutally real. He looked at bodybuilding not as some ego trip, but as a health-oriented sport. Yes, he wanted to look amazing, but he also wanted to feel amazing and actually live a long life doing it. He had this saying, working and enjoying what he was doing. That was his version of success. Not being rich, not being famous, just waking up every day, doing the thing you love, and taking care of your body along the way. He wasn't just out there pumping iron. Steve studied nutrition like a total nerd, in the best way. He treated his body like his own personal science lab, testing what worked, what didn't, and what helped him stay strong and healthy without going off the deep end. And when you look at the man's physique, natural, symmetrical, not over the top, it's kind of proof that he knew what he was doing. Get this, his diet was about 60% carbs, 20% protein, 20% fat. Not keto, not carnivore, just plain old balanced. He stayed far, far away from white sugar and white flour, like they were the enemy, and loaded up on fruits, veggies, and lean meats. Nothing wild, just simple, whole foods. And people still say he had one of the greatest natural physiques of all time. But let's talk about the elephant in the room: steroids. Steve hated them. Hated what they did to people's bodies, hated what they did to the sport he loved, and hated that the industry started glamorizing that stuff just to make a quick buck. He'd see those magazine covers filled with unnaturally huge guys and just shake his head like, this is not what we were trying to do here. And he'd call it out, boldly. He wasn't scared to say that steroids were ruining the integrity of bodybuilding. He even said, and I quote, "I plan to live to be 100. I don't know if I'll make it, but I'm gonna try." And that there would get me dead at 65, probably. Can you imagine how ahead of his time that thinking was? Back then, people weren't even talking about the long-term health damage like they do now. But Steve saw it coming. He knew that injecting hormones just to look more impressive was a one-way ticket to health problems and an early grave. In 1994, he even co-founded the Steve Reeves International Society with his buddy George Helmer. They put out newsletters full of stories about Steve's life, both the public stuff and the behind-the-scenes stuff, and shared his tips for living a healthy life. It wasn't just nostalgia or hero worship either. It was about keeping his message alive and showing people that you can build strength. And if there's one line from Steve Reeves that kind of wraps up his whole vibe, it's this: be passionate for what you do, but don't become fanatical, and you will enjoy your life much more. That's the core of his philosophy. Love what you do, go all in, but don't lose yourself. Don't turn your goals into obsessions. Just live, fully and intentionally, and enjoy it. And really, how often do we hear that message these days? They say every Hollywood feud has two sides, but when it comes to Raymond Burr, one man didn't just have a side, he had a full-blown vendetta. Was it something he did on set or off camera? Keep watching, because the answer isn't what you think, and the reveal at the end is chef's kiss. Why Steve Reeves truly hated Raymond Burr. You know how sometimes two people can walk into the same room and right away you just feel the tension? Like, they don't even have to say anything. You can just tell they're wired completely differently. Maybe even built for two different worlds? Well, that was exactly the case with Steve Reeves and Raymond Burr, two Hollywood heavyweights who couldn't have been more opposite if they tried. You've got Reeves, this golden, glowing symbol of raw physical power and clean living, like someone carved him out of marble. And then you've got Burr, the intense, brooding type whose presence was more about gravitas and less about muscles. And somehow, their worlds collided in the most unexpected way, and the ripples from that meeting sort of echoed throughout their careers. So picture this, it's 1950, and they're both cast in a pilot called Prison Doctor. At first glance, nothing major, just a little production for Review Productions. But in hindsight, it was kind of a big deal. This wasn't just any pilot, it was the first one for Review, a studio that would eventually help shape American television. Reeves was there, flexing that Mr. Universe body of his, basically looking like a walking Greek god. Meanwhile, Burr played a gangster in a wheelchair, which, if you know your TV history, is eerily similar to the role that would later make him a household name in Ironside. But what's clear is that even from that first moment, there was this unspoken clash between them, like two lions eyeing each other across the savannah, not quite ready to fight, but definitely not planning to share the same territory. And the more you learn about these two, the more obvious it becomes that they just weren't cut from the same cloth. Reeves was all about integrity, especially when it came to his body. He built that thing brick by brick, the old-fashioned way, no shortcuts, no funny business. He believed in natural development like it was a religion. You know those people who are so committed to their principles it almost makes you feel lazy? Yeah, that was him. He once said something like, "If your genetics can't give you the body you want without hormones, maybe this isn't your sport." Brutal, right? But at least you knew where he stood. He was all about honesty, even if it made him a few enemies. And let's be real, Hollywood doesn't always love honesty, especially when it pokes holes in the illusion. Now contrast that with Burr, who was very much a product of the Hollywood machine. He wasn't interested in being a fitness icon or a health guru. His thing was drama, big, bold performances that captured attention. He had this intensity, this seriousness about him, and he played it to perfection. But here's the thing. That kind of success often comes with layers of artifice. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a different kind of authenticity, one that's more about selling a story than living it. Burr's world was about transforming into characters, projecting personas, navigating the complex dance of stardom. Reeves's world? It was more like, what you see is what you get. Can you even imagine what it was like having those two on the same set? Rhodes Reason, another actor who happened to work with both of them, later talked about that pilot and how significant it really was. For Reeves, it came right before he took a break to serve in the military. For Burr, it was just before he skyrocketed to fame with Perry Mason. They were both standing at this weird crossroads, careers about to take off in completely opposite directions. And according to Reason, there was definitely a vibe. You know that low-key tension when two people don't necessarily hate each other, but there's this simmering unease, like they just fundamentally don't get each other? That's what it was. And maybe, deep down, they didn't even want to. After that, their paths couldn't have been more different. Reeves took off for Europe and became a massive star over there with his Hercules movies. He was huge. People forget that sometimes, but in Italy and beyond, he was basically a superhero. Meanwhile, Burr became a fixture of American television, first with Perry Mason, then Ironside. Total household name. But their successes almost seemed to cancel each other out, like they were winning in parallel universes. And maybe that's part of what kept the tension alive between them, even from afar. They represented two kinds of fame that rarely overlap. One rooted in myth and physical power, the other in drama and complexity. Like, which one really defines Hollywood? And if you zoom out a bit, their whole dynamic kind of feels symbolic, doesn't it? Like Reeves stood for authenticity, the guy who lived what he preached, who believed in hard work and never faked it. He'd train like a machine, doing 9 sets per body part, but roll his eyes at anyone who did 20, calling it a waste of time. He wasn't about flash. He was about truth. Burr, on the other hand, was more about the image. Not in a fake way, necessarily, but in that traditional Hollywood sense, where the craft is about becoming someone else, creating a persona that resonates with the audience. You could argue that Burr's approach is just as valid after all. That's what actors do, right? But to someone like Reeves, who saw life in more black and white terms, it might have felt like smoke and mirrors. So here you have these two men, both talented, both successful, both passionate about what they did, but standing on opposite sides of a philosophical line. One was all about keeping it real, the other about playing the part. And honestly, that kind of quiet rivalry says so much about the entertainment industry. It's not always about feuds or big public drama. Sometimes it's the subtle clashes, the ones that happen on set, behind the scenes, in the way one actor eyes another across the room, that really tell the story. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.